Oh, it's definitely a good Friday, and Bitcoin seems to be flashing all kinds of signals.
Let me into my zone. Let me into my zone. Please don't let me into my zone. 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 Please don't let.
Hello, people of camera number 2. Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. Wishing you a very happy and healthy and maybe even profitable start to your Good Friday over here from Helsinki, Finland. It's bright as fuck outside. It's too hot. I absolutely hate it. But you know what? If you like the sun, well, I'm glad for you. Anyways, Good Friday looking to be a nice eventful day for good old Bitcoin trading as Bitcoin actually breaking down in the early morning hours as soon as I wake up. Very, 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 very nice. Actually did initiate my first trade in about a week now, which is, well, make me actually feel like I have some fucking skin in the game once again, as I did short 72.20-ish region. Anyways, with regards to that, I do want to follow up on yesterday's analysis, talk about the short-term, medium-term. However, long-term, not really changed around just yet, although that could very easily get hit over this weekend, but maybe I'll save that for the Sunday long-term analysis video. Other than that, I want to say that I'll be back on Twitch later today. We've had some absolutely epic streams, really good conversations, not just about magic internet money, but also just about mindset, psychology, all that good stuff. And of course, some Rona talk in there as well. How can you fucking avoid it in these times? But want to be focusing on the positive of it at least. Anyways, we do see a change of behavior here now, don't we? Now, on the open interest, we have not seen Bitcoin above 650 million on the scale right there, which does suggest that we are seeing a little bit of a change in behavior from the lower and medium term timeframes, which is going to align with price action and the picture that we've been constructing for the last month or so, to really starting to actually come to fruition, perhaps. But that is still contingent upon a few signals being met, or a few areas being hit, I suppose is a better word. And I have to be very careful with my words there, because you never know who can misinterpret what, and perhaps I don't do the best job of explaining myself as well. I do want to take some responsibility in that fact too. But there are some pretty damn big and demonstrative areas that I want to be talking about today. Other than that, I want to briefly comment on. Do I even want to comment on that? No, I do want to comment on it. Fucking, what is Twitter? What is Twitter? I try to not follow basically any crypto people on Twitter, except for except for a few here and there. But every once in a while, I'll get caught in a thread. And I'll just see like the most strange things of all time. Like, people literally would rather argue on Twitter than actually just trade, I guess. Like, people are more involved, at least from what I've seen, people are more invested on Twitter of like calling others out and talking shit about like the other team. So like, if you're bullish, you're gonna be talking about the stupid bear scum, and if you're gonna be bearish, you're gonna be talking about stupid bulls, they don't know anything. It's like, holy shit, man. If you're actually trading, and this is what I don't understand, if you're actually trading, I don't think that you have, well, one, you don't really have time to do such things, or two, it doesn't even matter, because if you're trading, you should only really be focused on your P&L, not about calling the other side stupid. And more importantly, a trader flips and flops between bull and bear all the fucking time. So whenever I see something like that, I'm like, man, I can pretty much instantly write this guy off as not having a fucking clue, which is pretty damn hilarious. Anyways, that's my small positive message of the day. The positive part being, don't get caught up in fucking silly social media games. Although I certainly do it a little bit here and there myself, but I also do want to say the reason why I even said that to begin with is that's the reason why I don't really engage on Twitter. I don't really care to get involved in these sorts of things, and well, I try to just use Twitter for like the informational aspect, which it gets diminished over time. Anyways, so with all that said, if you are trying to contact me on Twitter, I apologize, because I pretty much almost never respond there. So I do apologize about that. The better way is via Discord if it's urgent. Anyways, looking at this right here, again, the open interest is the big thing that stands out right now. You can also find this app at app.crowntrading.net. It's free. Take advantage of it by creating an account there, and then all of this can be yours and more with the new updates coming up relatively soon. Other than that, all the metrics are more or less flat here. Bitcoin dominance, a little bit, still hanging around the 64% mark. Haven't really seen any major change there. Fear and greed index actually coming down from a 22 to a 15. This is still the most. This is still the thing that makes me think that Bitcoin could pull through here to the upside, as the market's extremely fearful, even after doing a 2x off the lows. You know, you can make an argument for that both ways, but at the end of the day, an underlying market dynamic does not supersede actual visible and tangible price action, which we'll get into right now. So let's go on over here into our good old Bitcoin charts. Let me just make sure that we're looking at the same thing over here. We are recording as well, 5 minutes in, and the microphone's working, so that's awesome. Anyways, Bitcoin taking a little bit of a turn south here, and finally giving us some edge for a trade. Well, at least I shouldn't say us, because this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing my thoughts in this market as they come about. So here's the big thing. This was a big focus of yesterday, right? The 4-hour golden cross, the 4-hour death cross, right? The green 55, the purple 200, as you can see right here. And as Bitcoin does confirm a small but yet unassuming golden cross right here, Bitcoin dumps right into it. This is the exact scenario that we were speaking about yesterday, in the sense that a lot of the time what you'll see when big crosses like this are hinted at or baited with is really sophisticated algos and bots that are kind of painting the illusion of one side, trying to get the less sophisticated bots and algos onto the wrong side of price action by front running these sorts of signals, you know, not having that patience to wait for confirmation, and then running price action the other way after they've gathered up some positions. This is further verified by looking at the open interest shooting up from about 600 million yesterday to about 670 million today, it looks like. And I would be very much intent to watch if this shoots up another 50 or so million back above 700 million. Getting all my numbers mixed up there, but you know what I'm saying. Anyways, on top of that, Bitcoin did break below the prior day's low, which did initiate that next move down to about 6,900. We did get that. That's exactly what we spoke about yesterday. And so we're seeing all of the things kind of meet up with each other. But while the shorter term timeframes have offered up a trade, which is why I did take that trade at about 72.20-ish region on that second crack below the 21. As soon as we kind of took off this low, rebounded for a quick second, that's when I got my position in. Bitcoin is still holding the medium term time frame range right here at about 6,900. This trend line coming in all the way back from our lows right around about 4,200-ish region. It obviously was not made on a 4-hour, because you can obviously see that it doesn't really fit here. But if you go to anything divisible by this time frame, you will see that it lines up pretty much perfectly, getting 1, 2, 3, and now well, you could even make 4 and perhaps even 5 right on over here. And what we can do now, because this area lines up so damn well, is we actually shift this blue box right here. And you've noticed me shift this blue box higher and higher as time goes on. Naturally, you know that that's the right way to be doing things, because Bitcoin has been riding this trend line higher and higher. And I do like that these things are meeting up with each other. And this is still very much, you know, the way that I'm looking at price action. So we can put it at right on over here, also in line with the 200 simple and 200 next Benjamin average, and flip this baby right here. And there we go. Maybe a little bit too big of a range there. It's not too actionable. Let's collapse it just down a little bit. I want like $100 range between about 60, a little bit above 67 and 60 to about 68. And there we go. That's exactly what I want to be looking towards. And of course, we still do have this massive, do you want to call it a rising channel? Do you want to call it a rising wedge? I don't care what you call it. Does imply redistribution as verified by the descending volume signature coming in from left to right, going all the way from the 13th of March to where we are right now, as verified by looking at the open interest right over here, which has been steadily collapsing, going from left to right as we play out this so far anemic, I wouldn't say anemic rally when it goes 2x off the lows, but a rally that is questionable nonetheless, as we haven't really shifted around any of the higher term timeframes trends. Trend is still down on all time frames that, you know, matter for long-term direction, you know, weekly and above. On top of that, volatility, historical volatility percentile, I should say, is further confirming this narrative. In fact, as we do see, the 4-hour has been steadily contracting all the way since, of course, the 13th of March as well, telling us that this is all one piece of the puzzle. So if this is all one piece of the puzzle, and we are still kind of confined within this, if you want to call it a rising wedge, do you want to call it a rising channel? I don't care what you want to call it. The implication is the same, and I don't really care for patterns to begin with, but distribution is the name of the game. If especially we can crack through the bottom support of this baby, which is currently coming in, let's call it right around about 68.50, we'll call it, to be a little bit more conservative. If you want to be more aggressive, if you want to be more conservative, then around 6,700, we'll call it. Any sort of a 2-hour or 4-hour dildo close below there should initiate the next measure, the next move down into the $6,500 region, which should be somewhere around the daily 21. However, as you'll notice, the long-term trajectory of this would start to really greatly angle to the downside, as we do have a measure move actually pointing us much lower, and especially with breaking at this price point right here. This is assuming that we actually do break. Technically speaking, there would be a measure move all the way back down towards around 5150-ish region. This measure move has been steadily moving up. It used to be down around about 4250. Then about a week ago, it moved up to about 4800. Then as of like the last week or so, it moved up to about 51. And then in the last week, it moved up to about 5150. So the longer that Bitcoin kind of worked its way to the upside here, the more and more that measure move would actually, naturally rise as well. This is a rising trend line right here, of course. So with all of that said, it still has actually not been initiated just yet. Could it be that Bitcoin, pops down here, reaccumulates and pops back up? Yep, absolutely. Certainly very well could happen. The bullish case still for the long term is actually still viable, but now it's very much contingent upon the exact same things that we've been saying for the last, ever since, when was this? Since the 6th of April. As long as Bitcoin's being confined below 7,400, that actionable move to the upside towards the $78,000 to $8,000 region is still what's the word that I'm looking for? It's still available, but it's held back. It's held back by this area right here, which means that I still do not target that area until we fully informally, at the very least, close a 4-hour dildo back above 7,400. If Bitcoin can do that, I would still have the same assessment of that next move to the upside. But seeing as Bitcoin has just only had wicks into this region, no closures above, and slowly but surely kind of curling over, does make me think that we probably will see this golden cross, death cross, bait and switch start to switch on over to the downside, especially as long as we are closing 4-hour dildos below 7,100, the same area that was our lower term time frame range holder for yesterday. So all these things coming together finally, and we are starting to see an area of interest that is going to be correlated with not just short, medium, but also perhaps even higher term time frames. A little bit lower to be fair, but while we look at the historical volatility percentile read right here, I do want to remind myself that we are coming from very, 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 very low areas, expanding from a single digit number after a contraction phase going all the way from March 13th to basically where we are right now, almost a month essentially. Which, if you go back in the history of Bitcoin, anytime that we've had a signature like this, this one stands out right here as very, very similar, contracting over about a month from November to December. That's when you get your big bad moves, and setting up for big bad moves on the other side. Doesn't always imply reversal, although this example is going from down to up, as you can see right here. This one pretty damn interesting, especially this signature right here, getting all the way down, contracting from about December to January, getting this low right here, and then boom, $4,000 move to the upside. By the same token, on this move to the downside right here, this gets you all the way to this low, boom, pops back up, spends some time contracting as well, and then same thing running over here on this failed rally. These are getting some pretty damn good moves overall before the next sort of switchy move, if you want to call it that. It's not always going to be reversal though. It can be continuation. So I don't want to paint the picture that this is 100% destined to go to the downside. I have been bearish on the medium and higher term timeframes for a while now on Bitcoin because nothing's really changed there. However, short term timeframes have shifted around quite a bit. I've been bullish since about 6,000-ish region, and now bullish over here too, to be fair. However, contingent upon taking out 7,400 to the upside, which Bitcoin has failed to do. So that continuation move has been stifled, and more importantly, we did see the big thing that we were saying with Bitcoin yesterday was that it's very much correlated with traditional markets, and if it's very much correlated with traditional markets, we were looking at SPY and E-mini futures to kind of judge where this is exactly going. And we did get that move up to about the 2830-ish region right here. That's about pretty much what I was looking for. We got up to 2810. Close enough is close enough as far as I'm concerned, and backing off a little bit to end the day. Although actually still kind of hanging it high, to be fair. So it does still look like it's going to give another try here. But overall, I do think that while traditional markets aren't trading for today, Bitcoin's going to be on its own and gets to choose its own direction. And as you can see, Bitcoin apparently hates the Easter Bunny apparently hates Bitcoin, it looks like so far. Anyways, on top of that, we do see all of our medium-term time frame also just turning back around, the 12-hour Stokes of peace and prosperity, or perhaps death and destruction for the non-barrows out there, turning back down from a very critical zone, also hitting this trend line, coming in all the way back from, well, actually, no, it didn't really hit this trend line now, did it? If we ran a regression through there, it'd be about right. But then again, I'll just say just getting in this region in general has not spelled good things for Bitcoin in the past. Other than that, though, this has been, and I hate to admit it, has been one of the few blindly followed ways to trade this asset that has been working for the last 2 years. It's not always going to be perfect, but I would say that those momentum oscillators turning down from this price point right here does very much align with momentum being gained to the downside after essentially what looks like redistribution in this region right here. And the greater formation, technically is a redistribution formation as well. So what does that spell overall? Well, I mean, pretty much the same things that we've been saying for the last few weeks. Other than that, I want to kind of come up with some areas for the lower term timeframes to be aware of, which I think we've already kind of accurately gotten. As long as we're closing 4-hour dildos below 7,100 or even more aggressively 7,000, I would say that momentum wanes, is increasing to the downside, obviously, but we are being held up by this trend line right now. Now, this trend line being very aggressive and being tested, almost 5 times now, does not bode well for it. The more times that you test the trend line, the weaker that it does get. As people buying it, they start to naturally run out of money, and the people who are looking for the other side seem to be showing their hands right now by forcing the open interest up while price action moves to the downside. Now, volume not really moving here as well, so we don't really have all pieces of the puzzle there, but I would say that volatility preceding volume does suggest that we are going to see that expansion come to the downside, and I'd still like to see this area taken out fully and formally right here, especially below about 6,800. We'll call it, again, conservatively speaking, about 67, maybe 6,750 if you want to make it like that. But overall, I'd wait for that area to get hit and then target moves at the very least down to about 6,500. That should be the daily 21. Yeah, I think that is around or actually no, daily 21 is at 6,850. Okay, nice. Actually, that lines, oh my God. Okay, so this area really is lining up with just about everything for short, medium, and higher term timeframes. This 6,800-ish region, we'll call it 6,800. Daily close below there, and yes, while I do think that we'll probably have another bounce somewhere right around 6,500, and there will be bounces along the way. I do think that ultimately we would be coming back down to test around the low 6,000s and probably even break below the low 6,000s, deep, back into the 5,000s. Does this imply that we're going to make new lows below our what is our current low, like $4,000 essentially? No, not yet. We'd have to really wait for something new to come in. That was a legitimate scenario before, from an overall structure perspective. We don't really have that right now, and so I would still play it by ear. It does make me less bearish overall. But for right now, does look like we're going to get an actual attempt here, especially if this 4-hour closes below, let's call it $7,000. And I would not flip back around until Bitcoin closes back, a 4-hour back above, let's call it 7,100. I would err on the side of caution here, as it looks like we have an agreement between lower term timeframes, medium timeframes, and high and macro timeframes, which is usually when the magic does happen. And this is when I really like to trade, and I've been very patient. I really wanted to get a position up here, as I've been showing, but it's looking like that may not be what's going on here, and that's certainly not what I'll be trading for as long as we're below 7,400. I thought that we were going to give a good try to it yesterday alongside traditional markets, which did get another leg up to the upside, but with Bitcoin not following in traditional markets footsteps, all of them kind of hitting up to that to what would be akin to 2,800-ish region on SPX. Does imply that Bitcoin is a little bit relatively weak compared to the rest of the world markets. So overall, I am very concerned about the long term, but as a trader, take it one step at a time. And at the end of the day, as we just kind of started this video with, trader switches their mind to and fro, and of course, it's all about a game of statistics. Not about being right. It's not about being I called it. I knew what was going to happen. It's about fucking trading for it, and that's who we focus on here in this channel. I understand that there's going to be some moon boys. There's also going to be some doom boys, as I have been on both sides in the past. But that's what it is to be a trader, and I'm naturally going to switch around. So all my areas that my buy switches around, I want to be very, 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 very clear with it, so that for the people who happen to give a fuck and the people who happen to actually make an effort to listen, then we can communicate with standardized terms. But for the people who are looking for the moon or doom shot, there are plenty of other channels out there who will hold your hand, telling you that Bitcoin's always going to 100,000 today imminently, or back down to 0 0 and no higher than that. That's not what trading's about, man. And for analysts out, analysts out there, they make their living off of saying all sorts of weird and crazy shit, which they're just not financially accountable to because they're not actually trading it. Anyways, enough of that. Okay, so while we are here on the lower term timeframes, we didn't even look at the low term timeframe oscillators. 4-hour Stokes headed down. Now we do have this trend line here, but it looks like it's about to break it, especially on this next tick. So keep an eye on that. If it does break it, I would imagine it likely does come alongside a break of this area right here. And very, very likely we will head at the very least to 6700 region and test around there. I want to see if there's confluence between these timeframes and our other timeframes. 3-hour heading down from the same area as well. Kind of spoke about this yesterday. 2-hour, same thing, same area. Hourly, same thing, same area. And so we're getting all these running with each other, plus the 12-hour, all coming from the same area right here as well. 12-hour RSI also giving you, did it give us a little, no bearish divergence at the top, but popping back down below the exponential. And this does look more obviously like a rising channel right here. Now it doesn't, or actually rising, which technically speaking, which we're about to be breaking relatively soon. Now you don't really see, that's actually not going to be a rising channel. That's not really how you get them, but actually just even like this is probably good enough. And it would have told you, yeah, yesterday. And then of course the daily as well. What is the daily doing? The daily running to obvious resistance in the neutral zone back below the exponential, or hinting at a time below there. And what do you know? Daily Stokes all coming from the same area. So this is typically what I wait for in trading when I want to put on like potentially a more longer term position. And I do believe that that's probably what we're looking at here, at least good enough for me to put on risk. So for full disclosure, I do have a position on from about 72. Let me actually go check over here. What was my exact entry? 72.19 it looks like, and I will be holding that position as long as we're below 7,100, especially. As long as we're below 7,100 especially, but even 7,000, I'd probably start to employ some option tactics to manage some risk on that one. But for right now, I do like it, at least for a short-term, medium-term reversal, and we'll see if we can crack that next level to the downside. Other than that, let's go check out the 2-day dildo time frame. We've been looking at this quite a bit as well, and this one's also of very much interest to myself and perhaps even you out there as well, as Bitcoin did put in a doji-ish dildo right here, confirmed last night. And what's important about that? Well, it's a sign of indecision and perhaps even reversal. Well, how'd you confirm reversal? Well, if you have indecision and then we take out the low side of it, it would follow that we are going to, at the very least, test down around 6750-ish region today, or maybe not today or tomorrow. But I do think that we will pop back down around there, just around the 10 simple on it, and that should be the next area to kind of be cognizant of from the medium-term time frame perspective. Now, what's also important about this is that the longer that Bitcoin hangs below the 21 exponential moving average, all these major moving averages will naturally shift to the downside and maintain their negative slope. And if they're all maintaining their negative slope, of course not the 10 simple, but that's not important right now. What's more important is the death cross that we've been watching for the last, ever since late March, essentially, which is now getting more and more divergence away from each other. I'm talking about the green and the purple right here, which suggests that the bots and algos are intensifying their sell programs and sell algos on this asset, and we can do a little bit more of a deep dive on this. I won't go super deep into it, but I do think that it's interesting nonetheless. As long as we are below the 21, I do play this as well bearish from this time frame perspective, and a 2-day time frame is erring on the side of a higher term time frame. So let's go back in the history of Bitcoin. Let's take a trip down memory lane and see what's going on here. As both the golden cross and the death cross from this time frame have been extremely powerful in Bitcoin's history. Last golden cross took us from about 7,000 to 14,000, pretty damn good. And then the last death cross coming in 2018, relatively similar market structure, although not as similar as 2014, 2015, funnily enough. And we get the death cross running over here. Slowly but surely, these moving averages gain more and more divergence away from each other, giving you plenty of time to react, although very, very frustrating for the people looking for the big inevitable break. Once Bitcoin Bitcoin actually does test the 55, and it actually has tested the 55 at the very least on all other death cross examples in Bitcoin's history. But then after that gets shoved back down below the 21 rather quickly. And once we're on an open and close basis below it, once again, right in over here, big bad dooms drop does indeed happen all the way down about 51%, as you can see. Then we got the golden cross back on over in of course, what is this, like 2015 right here, taking it all the way from $300 to 20,000, pretty damn good. And then we have another example right here in 2014, 2015, very, 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 very similar. it doesn't need to be exact. We're not making fractals here, but we are looking for what the bots and algos of this market are doing, which does typically get shown by metrics like this. So Bitcoin does get the death cross right here. Price action is relatively far away, and I would say that that's really, really similar to what we're seeing right now. Price action far away from the death cross, so naturally it's probably going to pop back up. This one happens to test not only the 55 but also the 200. So it is a little bit of an outlier what we're seeing right now, not getting that next move up to that 77, 7800-ish region as we were speaking about yesterday. But doesn't mean that it has to happen. Not only that, we do kind of play out this ascending broadening wedge, which is a redistribution pattern as well. Sounds familiar, right? A redistribution pattern doesn't need to be the exact same, but a redistribution pattern as we get the death cross, as these major movement averages get more and more divergence away from each other. And then what do you know happens after we lose the 21 on an open and close basis? Well, once again, from top to bottom, from that price point is another 53% drop. So looking at the proximal price action, we do see, something of interest here as well. And I do think that there will be bounces along the way. Of course, it's not going to be a straight fucking line down. And of course, on all these points, could it reverse and everything? Yes, which is why we're going to come up with points of invalidation, which we've already kind of covered, especially above 7,100, should probably do it. Or even you could just use the 2-day 21 right now. Sorry, I shouldn't say you can, but that's what I would be doing if I am going to be trading this one for the longer term time frame. So as you know, and to be fair, we have not even closed below the 21 just yet, but taking out yesterday's low on a doji dealer does suggest that we probably do at the very least attempt lower before this is all said and done. And if we close below the 21, perhaps we do get another test up to it. I don't have any problem with that. And as you can see, in the past examples, which I've gotten a lot of shit for whatever reason, for going over past examples, which is very much irrelevant. I mean, if you don't remember the past, then you're destined to repeat it in the future, of course, as the old saying goes. And not only that, we have a very good insight on what the market movers are doing by just looking at these relatively simple tools, although we can make this much more complicated if we want to, but not really any real need or necessity to do that right now. But as long as we're below this area, I do err to the downside. And more importantly, I don't really care about making a triumphant post on crypto Twitter about stupid bulls, buying into this right here, because, well, I would rather just trade for it. And I won't make you'll never see me make a post like that. Anyways, well, I should never say never. You never know what could happen. Maybe it might really feel good. Maybe you get paid in like Twitter coins or something like that, and that's what people are going off of, and I just don't know about it yet. But as far as I know, you don't really get paid for social clout. Anyways, as this happens, we should also take a look at our momentum oscillators. So throughout this whole rally, we have seen momentum oscillators act as you'd expect. 2-day Stokes crossing all the way up from about one tick off the lows all the way to where we are right now, testing around the bullish control zone. However, that should naturally provide a little bit of counter trend resistance just by the nature of it, even if Bitcoin does still remain more or less posture to the upside. If it was to pop back up to the upside is what I mean to say. Not only that, but 2-day RSI is giving us or is it giving us hidden bearish divergence? It is not. Well, between this point and this point, that doesn't really count. That's continuation on this time frame. It does work on our daily though, and we have been speaking about that as well. This point right on over here, obviously putting in major hidden bearish divergence, but this is getting pretty damn far back now. So how relevant is it to the price action that we're doing now? It's relevant, but I wouldn't expect it's not something that I would just that I'd make a habit of. What's more important to me is that momentum oscillators are essentially getting used up as Bitcoin hasn't reverted any trends on any time frames that really dictate the macro. The 2-day trend obviously not even giving us not even taking us back above that $8,000 kind of stutter step right there. And the weekly, of course, the weekly is a big problem here because we really don't switch around the trend, technically speaking. And you could obviously get bullish before this, no doubt about that. But the weekly trend technically does not switch around until we get a higher high above 10,200 right here. So it's got a lot of work to do. And perspective is everything. And what do you know, while we're on here on the weekly as well, let's just kind of cover this. I said I wouldn't talk about high term time frame stuff, but might as well. Little bit of vindication for all the shit that I've been getting talking about this, realizing that people I think judge the market on like a daily basis or God forbid even below that, like on a fucking hourly basis. And they don't realize that maybe they don't realize that it's really the higher term time frames, like a weekly, monthly, that dictate direction. This one right in over here, giving us a bearish cross between the 21 and the 55. Also acting as a rejection of this wick to the upside. Now, to be fair, we have not seen the weekly close just yet, but if it did close basically anywhere below 7,000, I would interpret this as a rejection. A nice shooting star dildo at the top, and Bitcoin gets ready for, well, Well, we have a couple examples of this in the past as well now, don't we? Back on over here in 2014, 2015, or sorry, not 2014, 2015, but 2018, we get this cross right on over here. It's not a death cross. There's only one death cross. Tests up around the 21, doesn't quite get there, and then boom, massive move down. We already know that's about 50% move. And then the time before that, same sort of example right on over here, does test the 21. And this one more of a channel on a weekly, to be fair, rising channel, which sounds pretty damn familiar for Bitcoin right now. Now it doesn't, so Bitcoin does have a history of playing these guys out, and result is the same as well. So just playing around with numbers, and I'm not saying that this is going to 100% happen or anything like that. I'm just playing around with numbers, and to be fair, I don't have. This is not something that I'd be trading off of, but it is interesting nonetheless, given that those two last examples on both the 2-day dildo death cross and also the weekly, this weekly cross that we're looking at right here, have produced about 50% moves in the past. Let's just see what would happen if we shaved off 50% from that price point, which would actually put us back down around 3,500, 3,600 even, which is interesting nonetheless, because that also is lining up with the gap on CMEs here, coming in back from about a year ago, maybe a little bit more than a year ago now, coming in from February 14th. No one talks about this gap, but everyone talks about the fucking $11,500 gap right there. And of course, looking at the weekly right here, looks like is this weekly? No, it's daily. Everyone wants to talk about the $9,000 gap right there as well. Fair enough. There's obviously relevancy to that, but again, it's a wrong mindset. It's a wrong fucking mindset at the end of the day. Gaps aren't like a fucking vacuum for price action that sucks it in, and like just because we have a gap, we have to go back there. I mean, look at the people over here who are trading for a gap. They will very likely get filled at some point, but the time component of that is not implied. This can take this can take months, maybe even years. I've seen in traditional markets gaps go unfilled for 5 years. It can happen. It's only relevant when price action reapproaches it, which is still very, 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 very far away. So perspective here is everything. I don't want to get caught up into the only bullish or only bearish camp. I do want to accurately represent my thoughts, and basically my thoughts boil down to this: as long as Bitcoin's below 7,400, I'm not medium or higher term time frame bullish. Does not happen for a very long time into the 8,000s. But I'm not medium-term time frame bullish as long as we're below 7,400. I'm not short-term time frame bullish as long as we're below about 71, maybe even 7,000 if you want to be more aggressive. And that's essentially aligning with my bias boner right now. So that's why I took that trade, and that's why and that's how I'll be managing it, and that's what I'm essentially doing right here. Looking at CMEs did have a decent enough close on Friday to make me think that this could be a fake out, especially over a weekend. With the week's direction mostly to the upside. It does make me think that could we have a fake out to the downside and then pop back up when regular markets start trading again next week? Yeah, absolutely, could very well happen. So it's a time to be a trader, not to be a fucking cheerleader, which is, I just can't wrap my I can't even speak either. Hey man, I have a tampon in my second butthole. Oh, where did that come from? You never know what you're going to hear on over here. Other than that, traditional markets obviously closed for the day. I think that Japan actually is trading, which is interesting. Looks like it wants to take a leg up here, but I think that it is following traditional markets American markets. So probably going to pop up to like 20,000, and I'll be looking for it to kind of pull back from that region. Gold following following our targets to the upside. We have hit about 1,700. It looks like 1,690ish region. I do think that this one's setting up for a move higher. Overall momentum also is turning back up here on the weekly, getting out of the bullish control zone, which is usually a very good signal. I do think that gold, again, I don't care about the rocks or anything like that. Don't care about precious metals, but to call a spade, this is, this is the thing that's acting as a hedge at a time when the world could potentially need one. I don't know. And I do think that long-term target's still viable to 1,800, especially assuming that today, does confirm a close above about 1,675. So as long as that happens, I remain overall bullish on it. I don't switch on to medium or long-term bearish. Long-term bearish doesn't happen until back below like 1470, but medium-term bearish happens below about 1580. Short-term bearish happens below about 1630. Looking very resilient here, looking good, and I do think that is going to be working its way higher, as we've been saying. Phenomenal reaction off the lows right here, confirming just yet again another higher low on a weekly. Speaking of higher lows on a weekly, there is one cryptocurrency that is also being a good boy as well, and that is none other than, you already fucking know, it's Link. I'm singing the praises of Links once again. Still holding the weekly uptrend here. I haven't been covering this recently, but we did hit our $3.50 target from a few days ago. Now popping back down, and with Bitcoin coming back down as well, I do think that this one will likely find its way back down below $3 into the $2.50 region. But as long as it's holding this long-term weekly trend line here, it's coming in, at the low $2 region, I do think that this one still is the darling of the market as long as that condition's met. Now, will it hold up if Bitcoin were to really accelerate to the downside? I don't think so. No, I don't think so. No, but to be fair, it has in the past. So if anything is going to do that, it would likely be Link, and I do think that it's worthy enough to talk about because it is actually doing something different and consistently different over the last 3 years since we started really looking at it, since about 2018, summer of 2018, I believe it was. Let's go look at the other majors and see if we can come up with any other interesting things that correlate with what Bitcoin's doing and kind of form out that bias boner a little bit stronger. Mr. Buterin looks a lot more obviously like a local top. I do think that it's going to be coming back down towards about 152.5. And more importantly, for Mr. Buterin, there's something very interesting here. So, well, let's take him back off. Actually, all right, let's put him all on, take him back off. How about that? All right, let's do something like this. So, we have the death cross between the green and the purple, 55 and 200 right here, right? And as Mr. Buterin starts to kind of mount this rally attempt, which is still, just looks like redistribution, especially looking at the volume signature down here. The death cross did actually weaken for a second there, but as soon as it starts to weaken, what is revealed by this price action? We take out the low of this consolidation, which does imply that we will get continuation a little bit lower here into the mid to low 150 range. And that would suggest that, the bots and algos are still on the sell side here. Doesn't mean that we're going to go, make new all-time lows or anything like that. That's a conversation, that we'll have a lot, probably a lot later if it does indeed happen, keep the doors and windows open, but for right now, does suggest that we will come back down at the very least to the median of this range and probably test around this region right here. Weekly also shaping up to be another rejection of the 21, and that has been a phenomenal way to kind of get the weekly trend when it's actually trending. Well, not always, to be fair, but actually not at all always. But long term, again, to put in perspective, I don't understand the bullishness on something like this when it's literally been a dead heartbeat of a chart almost, just creating lower lows and lower highs on a weekly basis. I did try to put in a higher low right here, but I don't think that's going to hold through, especially looking at the monthly. The monthly reveals all. You can't hide from the monthly, and the monthly looks like continuation to me, and probably setting up for a retest of the lower 100s overall. That can still take a very long time, though. I don't have any real time frames for this. Bitcoin as well, as we've been speaking about on the monthly, this 7,300-ish region, very important. I actually would get bullish on Bitcoin if it did close a monthly above 73 or wherever the 21 is. That's what I use in traditional markets to judge if something was generally bullish or generally bearish over the long period of time. And for right now, providing the impetus for rejection as monthly momentum oscillators continue to accelerate to the downside. Here's your monthly Stokes rejecting the bullish control zone and down. Not fucking good. Anytime that these have been down from whatever angle has just been your long-term down markets. Example over here. Well, you can't really. Let's put it on log scale. The thing that I am convinced of is that bulls are looking at Bitcoin on log scale, bears are looking at Bitcoin on a linear scale, and the real answer is that you should actually be looking at both because they both do matter. We're looking at it right here. Yeah, starts to flip around here, gets this move all the way down. Okay, then we flip to the upside here, go all the way up here over here. Beautiful. Flip to the downside right here, go all the way down to here, flip back up to the upside. Okay, you get the point. More importantly, monthly RSI also not looking all that healthy, living back below the exponential on it, which I really do not like. And while it probably does spend a little bit of time in this neutral zone, my fear is that it's going to come back down and test around the bearish control zone, which we've tested once, twice, thrice, and 4 times. If it actually comes back down around there, I fear that it'll actually break. But again, this is very, 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 very far away. To be fair, this last monthly close with a wick this high that looks like capitulation. You could very easily make the argument that this is capitulation right here. I do think. So, does that mean that the low is in? Yeah, I do think that the conversation of the low is in for Bitcoin is very much viable. Absolutely. But for me to kind of switch around on that, we'd have to really close a monthly below like 5,000. That's when I start to really think, okay, we're going to very likely test into the mid to low 3,000s again, and perhaps even lower, as technically speaking, we'd have very likely a long-term downtrend after that. I mean, we have just been putting in lower highs ever since 20,000 on a monthly, and now we're actually kind of in the more proximal times. Well, I wouldn't say that we're trending down here just yet. We really need to take out this low right here. So back below 4,000, I would say that, but not right now. No. Still got a lot of work to do. I want to be very fair and balanced here, like Fox News. So I don't get caught up in the fucking emotions of this bullshit. I just don't understand what people are. What people are arguing over. Like, I'm not even involved in the arguments. I'm not even fucking, like, no one's even calling me out or anything like that in these Twitter threads, but just watching it makes my blood boil. It's like, what the fuck is this, man? Hey, you're a grown adult. What the fuck? I'm a grown adult that talks about dildos and putting tampons in my second bunghole. So there's that too. You can call me out on that. Anyways, what's Mrs. Litecoin doing? Same bullshit. Probably coming back down, testing around $42.5. I do think that we've hit our target from yesterday as well. Yeah, it probably does. I think that you could even say that area has pretty much already been tested. Bias changes back up short term to the upside, back above $45. However, as long as we're kind of hanging below here, does look like redistribution in this region. How long are we in? 40 minutes. Okay, I've been talking way too long, sir. You need to cut me the fuck off. For all the people who are still listening, I salute you, my friends. I salute you. I do want to call out Zcash as well. Zcash had a nice move to the upside yesterday, giving it all up today, but interesting nonetheless. I was actually expecting that most things would kind of follow in its footsteps. Usually a good sign when the altcoins do get a good move like this. However, no, looks like it was a little bit of an exit pump, perhaps. Nasty, man. This market is fucking brutal and unforgiving. Okay, cool. What else we want to talk about? Dixie closing the week on an up note, or sorry, actually no, on a little bit of a down note. Did hit back above $100 the other day. I would still be bullish on this overall. I think it will come down a little bit lower, probably like $99, but longer term, this is looking like reaccumulation after a very long accumulation all the way from about 2006. 2006. This is what a real fucking chart looks like. 2006 accumulation all the way to 2014. That means something. This looks like reaccumulation to me right in over here, and I do think that the dollar is going to be long term still bullish, as I've been stating for a very long time now. And what does that mean for Bitcoin? I mean, Bitcoin technically trades against it, but realistically, this one moves in like 0.001 decimals. Bitcoin moves in like fucking $100 in an hour. So how relative is it? Not that much. I bet it is relative technically. I mean, Bitcoin trades against the dollar, so do have to be fair there too. Anyways, okay, cool. So we haven't even looked at all of Bally's cool tools right now. Let's go do some probabilities. Let's go do some reverse stochastic crosses. And yesterday, might I remind myself that, remember yesterday, the big area that we were looking at was about 7,100 or 7,150 as verified by all the reverse stochastic crosses. I expect that to be the same now, actually, but reversing back up to the upside. So this should align my bias bone, or changing back to the upside if Bitcoin can close, 4-hour dildos, especially above 7,100, maybe even 7,000 this is still 7,100, or sorry, no. It actually does look better on my BitMEX chart, but I've been using the GDAX chart to kind of get the more proximal price. Actually, yeah, 7,000, 7,100. So let's see. Let's take everything else off. And what do you know? First one on the 4-hour, 71.30. Fucking perfect. What about the 3-hour? 72.25. A little bit higher than that, but fair enough. Would make sense. 72.20 on the 2-hour. So maybe I am being too aggressive by saying 7,100, and 7,200 on the hourly. Let's see what the 12-hour would say. 12-hour says cross back up above 73.50. So that's still right for the medium-term time frames, aligning with that bias as well. Really like the confluence there. And then what about the daily? The daily is technically up right now, but keep in mind, this is the next big one. This is really the next big one for myself. If Bitcoin closes this daily below, let's call it $7,000, I do believe that we will see further momentum to the downside. Probably bring us at the very least down to about 6,500 relatively fast, and then we'll come back and reassess from there. But remember, at that point, technically measure moves would be initiated. I'm curious what a Fibonacci, what a bearish Fibonacci retracement we'll kind of show on this one. I think we've already done it over here for CMEs. Let's go check it out. This is a fib retracement from our last high at about 10.5 to our last major low at about 5. And you can see that we're getting rejected around the 0.5. But this one actually doesn't line up that well. The 236 aligning at 62.50, I do like that area. And the 382 actually where we are right now on spot. So let's go over to spot and do the same thing for spot. It's kind of strange that you don't see them line, and maybe I should be taking a bullish retracement on this, but we can do that too. Let's see if it aligns better on spot. No, it's actually the same. We kind of got stopped in no man's land right here. 236 right around 61.50. I do like that. 382 right around about $7,000 where we are right now, so I do like that as well. But let's see if the bullish retracement actually does make more sense on this. So let's check this out right here. So if you are looking, I mean, it doesn't align with any of my liquid or liquid zones or order blocks here. So that's a big red flag. So I'd have to say that probably not. No, it only aligns with this one right here. So no, very unlikely. What about a bearish retracement on the more proximal price action as well? Something like this, that actually does fit a little bit better. This one getting hit by the 382, this one almost in line with the 0.5, not quite though. Nothing's really, well, the thing is that I actually haven't charted out the low term timeframes that specifically here. So if I did, we'd have one right here. We'd have a nice little zone right here. It looks like, let's see if that aligns with anything. And when in doubt, pull it out, as they say. Yeah, this lines with the 618. Okay, so yeah, the bearish retracement does work a little bit better there. So fair enough. Again, you know, I'd rather focus on more tangible things right now. And I think going level by level is still the way, at least for myself as a trader, with a slight bias boner to the downside still. Let's go check out expected moves chart. Right on over here. Obviously, as we said yesterday, kind of like the ticking time bomb to the upside has expired, I believe, as we do see all the rings start to shift to the downside. God damn it, it's all in my face, all in my way. Hold on, let's do something like this. There we go. And actually, funnily enough, let's go over to the daily. Daily's going to start to angle itself downwards. Yes, indeed, it does. So we do see that probability is going to naturally shift to the downside as well. However, the funny thing about this is that, or maybe not so funny, but the thing about this is that the rings are so massive because volatility is so expanded in this region from this time frame perspective. But we can still use the same range, or we don't have to use the same ranges. Now we can use let's use 7,100 to the upside. Or sorry, if we do use 7,400, it actually is still quite likely. So it's not a done deal that Bitcoin's reversing here. We could very easily have a fake out, especially when regular markets are not trading for today. I would be defensive. I'd be very defensive. Technically speaking, to the upside, still 41% probability that we actually could close above 7,400, which would initiate that next move to about 78 or $8,000, which I do like and I would trade for. To the downside, obviously very, very likely as well, about 40% as well. But let's actually angle this a little bit lower. So I want to see today's daily total close. Remember, today's daily total close below about, let's call it 68.50. Let's just use 6,800 to be a little more conservative, and then above 7,100. For the upside, let's see what this kind of aligns with. That should initiate the next measure move. Above target probability, 56%. So still very likely that we could be in an actual fake out. Although I do think that this is naturally going to come down, you know, as time goes on and Bitcoin fails to get back above 7,400. That's still the harbinger of death and despair as far as I'm concerned. To the downside, 29% probability that we do close below about, what was it, 68? Yeah, 68, which is actually a more conservative estimate for that downside next move. So let's go back on over here. And 68 is coming in right here, which should be the daily. I believe that's a daily 21 as well. Yeah, daily 21 is at about 68.50 actually. So yeah, could take its time here, but overall, I do think that Bitcoin's a little bit under pressure overall. Other than that, I think this is a good time for me to maybe sign off. Go back over the lower term timeframes. I switch back around above about 7,100, 4 hour total close above there, and probably look for it to carry out this range a little bit more. Could very well happen. We still got an hour and 42 minutes and 53 seconds. Don't want to, get too aggressive here. By the same token, closing below 7,000, and I do believe that we're going to spend maybe a little bit of time going sideways here, but ultimately, ultimately likely test down into this blue box, which is going to initiate all kinds of measure moves much lower into the below 6,000. I would look for bounces along the way of, the areas of interest would be around 6,500, then 6,200, then 5,900. Basically, every $200. This is only relevant to the lower term time frames. If you're looking at a higher term time frame, it's probably just going to look like a straight line maybe. And then below there, about 5,600, also the weekly 200, and then the full on measure move would be hit at about 5,150. So not implying new lows here, to be fair. And this is all contingent upon basically, can you use the lower term time frame to do this? Yes, the more aggressive traders will, and I probably would as well. But technically speaking, a daily below about 6,800, I'd feel quite confident with that. But we'll come back to it and analyze it in real time. And that's essentially what the Twitch streams are for, not for doing like full on price action, but doing more immediate price action. And I think that's a good place to step off right now. I'll be back on Twitch in a few hours. Looking forward to do that because it's been a shit ton of fun. Other than that, I want to wish you well once again. Take care, and until next time.